right, Robert, you just passed the PMP. How do you feel, man?
Man, I am super excited. I couldn't believe it. I got down to the wire. The time expired, and I waited and waited, and then it said, "Congratulations, you passed the PMP." So I was super excited. I think you were the first person I texted right after I got that.
That is awesome, dude. It means a lot to get the text at first. And I was pumped because you did 3 above targets, right?
I did. All thanks to you.
I appreciate it. Cool. So everybody's got a story. What was your shortened version? What's the arc? What's the story? How did we get here?
So I've been with my company for just about 26 years now, and I was promoted to a role about 3 years ago, right? And things have started to turn for the worse. Like people are leaving, and I'm the only one left on this team. And then, of course, in my mind, I'm getting nervous, right? So I'm like, I'm looking for jobs, and I'm like, everyone wants this PMP certification, and I've been a project manager, but without the certification, I'm not even getting the interview, right? So I'm like, I need to do something. So I joined PMI, joined one of the boot camps that was advertised on their site. I'm like, this is awful, man. I don't understand a single thing they're talking about. I'm reading the PMBOK, I'm falling asleep. So I was looking for a better way, right? And so I was on Audible. I found your book, and I listened to a couple of chapters, and I'm like, I understand it. You're focusing on non-memorization. You taught it, taught the concepts. You had the case studies. I'm like, this is for me. So in between your chapters, right, you're talking about, hey, give me a call. So I went to your website, right? I put in my information, and I think 5 minutes later, not even 5 minutes later, I get a phone call. It's you. It's like, hey, it's Scott Payne. What's going on? So, yeah, you invited me to join one of your hard question made easy sessions before I committed, and I was hooked, man. So, I think I'm 3 months in maybe, and passed the PMP, 3 above targets. So it's awesome.
That's awesome, dude. And you were ready way ago. So we're all right. You could have done it a month ago, but you'll be all right. So you said hey, we have something in common. We both took the class from that place that I know you won't want to mention. And so the same place, I know what you're talking about, and everybody else does. It's okay. It's terrible. But what was wrong with the learning experience? Like, what wasn't making connection? Like, why was it foggy in your brain at that point?
So, I only went through one class, right? The first class, and it was death by PowerPoint, man. So they sent the deck, right? And they just started going through it. I mean, just randomly different points of the PMBOK, you need to know this and memorize this, and you're going to do this data dump, and all these things. And me being an engineer and needing to know how things work, I'm like, I don't get it, right? And so I started just going through the material myself. Like after that class was over, I'm like, this is not for me. I can't do this. I need to understand how it works. If I'm going to do this for my life or for my career, I need to put it into practice, right? Even though I had been a project manager before, I certainly didn't follow all these steps, right? But then, watching the videos from you, and just listening to the chapters in the book, I'm like, this makes sense. These are things that will help me in my real life. So it's not just about, going to a test mill and taking the test and passing the test. It's about finding the knowledge or using the knowledge in a career, so it helps you in the future. So that's why I was so excited to find your course.
That's awesome, man. And you said about actually using it, because you're a practitioner. You've been working there for 26 years. You've been doing things. Do you look at things differently? Do you think you've improved or have the ability to improve now as a project manager?
Most definitely. So, I understand now why some of the projects in our company fail, right? I mean, they haven't gone through things like risk management, like the whole flow that you talk about, they don't do that, right? And I know we've talked about IT, right? IT just go do it, right?
Yeah.
Here's your problem, go solve it. And that's what we've been used to for the last 26 years. Not following the process with the end game in mind and following the flow so that everything comes out as it should. So I understand now why things have, failed, and, maybe where I can do things better in the future.
That's awesome. You just gave me an idea. That's cool. That's cool. So like as you got into the program and you started learning, like things started to take effect. Like, what was it like? Were you nervous? Were you excited? Like, what was it feeling like when you got in there and you started to learning? What was the initial kind of weeks or so like for
So
you?
when you invited me to the first class before I even had signed up, right? You're like, yeah, not to put you on the spot, but we're gonna ask you some questions. So I'm like, I haven't even looked at any of the material yet. So I was pretty freaked out. But I mean, you make it in it's such a fun environment. I mean, there's no judgment, right? I mean, it's all about learning, and you guide people down the right path by asking questions, and everyone's super nice, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you and David and the rest of the students, and I mean, we become family essentially. um, but there's no judgment, and so, learning from day one, understanding the process, and you've got, I mean, you've got your videos and the podcasts and all that stuff, and listening to all of the themes and everything. It's all about understanding it, not just memorizing it. And
Mhm.
so that's what was helpful for me. And then when I got into the videos, what was nice about your course, because it wasn't live, right? I mean, it's the videos, and so I've watched your videos like 2 or 3 times, especially the ones that didn't click the first time. Like I
Yeah.
just, so that for me that was beneficial. Um, Having the ability to go back and not have that live session where maybe I forgot something, right? So that was great.
Yeah, that's cool. And I mean, this is always bittersweet, right? Because it's like, I'm super pumped you passed. 3 above target's amazing, but it's like, shoot, you won't be on the calls anymore. Because it's like, the cool thing is we get to talk. Like it's just like back and forth instead of like, that's why I'll never teach a class the way they teach class that way, because it's like one way, blah blah blah. But here it's like I get to learn what you're talking about, and then you get to give. At the end, when you were really close, it was like I know who on the call is like got it and doesn't, and then I can just be like, if there's a person that doesn't have it, they're talking. Hey, Robert, what's your opinion? What do you think? So like, did you like talking back and forth to the students and kind of debating ideas and wrestling around with it and stuff, or what?
Yeah, I think it was beneficial, especially, in the beginning, because the other students help you learn, right? They give you a different point of view or perspective that you might not have thought of, or even things like finding keywords like it may do this, or you pick up little tips and tricks that they've learned along the way, and it just helps accelerate your growth.
That's
And
awesome,
then,
man.
like you're saying, towards the end where you're helping the newer students, right? So it's just cyclical.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And so like the actual exam, like no one ever feels ready. That's the fact. I never felt ready. The smartest students never feel ready. I mean, you were obviously ready because you had 3 bullet targets. But like, you didn't feel totally ready, but we said, you should do it. You're gonna be fine, whatever. Um, what kind of questions did you face? It was like a lot of situational stuff, a lot of agile stuff. Like, what did you face?
So there was a lot more agile than I anticipated. I mean, uh, to me, it seemed like it was more 50% of the test. I'd say it was still situational, but it was phrased in such a way that your company is currently in this environment and they're moving to a hybrid environment, or they're moving
Mhm.
to agile. And, what should, the project manager do in this situation, or what should you do about communication? Or you've got, this management level that wants to be involved, what do you do about it? So there
Mhm.
was a lot of those types of questions, lots of communication, lots of risk, lots of quality. So
And cool. And like you're talking about like going from waterfall to agile or somewhere in the middle, like in your opinion, having a perspective now, like what's the best way that a student could be prepared for like knowing both things and how to navigate and stuff? What do you think?
So there were two things I did. So you had, the whole waterfall made easy,
Yeah.
right? Or waterfall, agile made easy.
Yeah.
So I watched that a couple of times, and because I don't work in an agile environment, so for me it was very foreign. it
Yeah.
sounded great. Like, I mean, this is the type of place I want to work.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is very foreign to me. So watching it 2 or 3 times for me was helpful just to understand it, or the process and everything. Um, there was a website that one of my classmates gave me. It was like a sample agile test. I know you're in the
Mhm.
process of integrating it into your stuff. So,
Yeah.
but I didn't have that at the time. But the sample test for me was good, just because I was able to pick up, things when I got it wrong. It had explanations and everything. So
Right.
that was really good, and I can share that link with you
Yeah,
as
no
well, and
problem.
you could share with your students.
Yeah. No, we won't. But go ahead. Yeah.
Or not.
No, we'll just use our own stuff.
We'll incorporate it into our own.
But yeah, yeah. But cool. And so like now as you like, why do you, I'm interested in, like you said, oh, Agile might be an interesting place, like the environment you want to work in. Like, what do you appreciate or think you appreciate about Agile now that makes it a place you'd like to be?
So what I like about it is the whole self-organizing team, right? You're not dealing with layers of bureaucracy in a company. The fact that you're moving towards the, you know, minimal viable, products, right? Or trying to get out
Yeah.
products quickly, delivering value more often, as opposed to, okay, you've gone through this whole process,
Hmm.
and then you're waiting for the very end. So for me, that's attractive. And the team that I'm on, or was on, that was our approach. We were four members, right? And we had that ability to do things quickly. So we were a subset of the organization. But when you go to a functional organization like ours with 75,000 associates, I mean, it's very functional. And if it's outside of your area, it's not happening.
Wow. That's crazy. Well, that is good. Yeah. And I do like that part of it too, where you're like, the team can go, you can drip out value in a way, you can just constantly put it out there, you can learn a lot. So that's cool. So I'm sure there are plenty of people out there that are struggling or in the fight now, and they just don't know what to do. What are some mistakes that you think that individuals could make as they start to prepare that you would want them to not make?
So I would not I would not memorize anything, right? For me, the best thing about your program was understanding the flows, the 7 flows video,
Mhm.
um, and understanding the process, just understanding what each thing does and how it works and how it's interrelated, and how you would do it in real life, right? Like the case stories, for example. This is real life, right?
Yeah.
John took you through the beginning through the end, and that's
Mhm.
kind of what helped me, visualize it. Like, this is what you should be doing. So if you're out there memorizing, yeah, you might pass the test, but you're not getting the knowledge, right? It's not going to help you in your job. If you want something that's going to help you in the future, in your career, in your process, and all that, understanding it at, at, at the very minimum is going to be your best friend.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so you only took like 3 months. Were you working full time, kids, family? Like, what was it like? Like,
Yeah. So, working full time, family, and with everything going on, the kids around all the
mhm,
time, right? So it was difficult to study. So, in between meetings, I would, pull up a video because they're short, right?
yeah,
I'd watch a little bit of a video or pause it if there was a meeting I could finish later. So for me, that was awesome. In the evening, I would switch it up a little bit. I would go to the flashcards,
mhm,
because just watching videos is tiresome, right?
sure.
But you've got different tools and resources out there, right? The flashcards and sample tests and all that. And so for me, mixing it up was great,
That's
even
awesome.
with the chaotic household.
I know. Yeah, it's crazy. And you mentioned David. David was your accountability coach. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. What was it like in David's calls?
Um, so David's awesome. He likes to steer you, not steer you in the wrong direction. That's not the right phrase. Like, you'll say, "This is what I think the answer is," and you're like, "Well, what do you think about this? Don't you think you should do this instead?" And he's trying to guide you down the wrong path, just so that you really think about what you're saying. And then, you're like, "No, this is what you would do in real life." And it's like, "Okay." And then and that's how you learn, because he changes your perspective, or gives you different perspectives to think about. And it's like, well, wouldn't you do this instead? And, the other thing that he told me is like, pretend you're not in IT like I am. And he's like, answer the questions like you're a project manager, not in IT. And I'm like, I didn't know what that meant at first. And then I gave it some thought, and IT is very reactive. Here's your problem, go fix it. It's not like you're going to write a project plan. You've got 10 seconds to fix it. Just go do it. And
Yes.
so, when you're taking the test, he's like, think like a project manager, not like you're in IT.
Oh, that's really good. I'm taking that, David. And so like that's a good thing that like that is awesome that he helped frame it. So got you on a plan, kept you going through it. And I love that like that he's kind of trying to lead you or challenge you, whatever you want to call it, to really like stick to your guns and be like, no, 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 I like that idea. So that's super, super good. So what's next, man? Like you got this. Like what's the next step for you?
So I am looking to integrate more of this project management into my career, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I'm kind of at a crossroads at this organization. I'd love to stay if I can find something that's going to fit my skill set.
Mhm.
Looking elsewhere, but I think from a learning standpoint, I really want to get into learning more about agile, right? So
Mhm.
maybe an ACP.
Cool.
Um, the other thing that I'm really interested in, we talked about the other day, is
Yeah.
like Lean Six Sigma, right? Learning that whole process, green belt, black belt. So I'm not sure which direction I'll go now, but I'm investigating both.
That's cool. I got them both, so we can hook you up. So we're good. Yeah, they're just, it's kind of fun, like to go from different methodologies because, like Lean and Six Sigma, very defined. Like waterfall project management, we talk about like initiating, planning, whatever, executing, mind control. Like DMAIC is in Lean and Six Sigma or Six Sigma, define, measure, analyze, improve, control, and it's just its own methodology and thinking. And like once you get into that neighborhood, it's like, oh, okay, how do we do things? Why do we do things? It's the same kind of thing, making it real and making it related. And then agile, we already talked about. But I think like the really cool thing is when like it's like I don't know what the image is in my head, but it's like the outside of like a pyramid or a triangle where you have all these different approaches or mental models, the ways they solve problems. And you're like, yeah, I'm a lean guy or Six Sigma guy. I'm an agile guy too, and a whatever guy. And you bring it all together and you're like, what works best? How can I become an artist and work it together without being too crazy? But yeah, I see good stuff for you. So I think it'd be cool pulling it all together. So that's awesome. Well, to finish off here, I know there's people out there like, dude, I like the way you're talking. I like the things. What are some last minute, like what's your last suggestion for people? What's your guidance for them to go forth and be successful? What do you tell them? What's your last, final words for them?
So, I mean, first and foremost, I'm going to say, if you're on the fence about joining Scott's program, don't be, right? Your program is really the best out there that, you know, you're going to learn. It's going to help you in the future. You're going to be a better project manager for taking this course, and you're going to rock the exam.
That's awesome, man. Well, that's it. Well, Robert, this won't be the last time we talk. I really, really appreciate it. You did so good. It's Friday. So I hope you have a good weekend, man. Thank you very much. Good job.
All right. Thanks, Scott.
Yes, sir.